This is Jacob's Algebra, Chapter 11, Lesson 7. This lesson is on dividing fractions. So we've talked about adding and subtracting fractions, and we've talked about multiplying fractions. In this lesson, we're going to be dividing fractions. So if we have a fraction a over b, and we are going to divide it by the fraction c over d, our process is this. Our a over b remains the same. So you just copy your first fraction. I'm sorry, that's supposed to be an a, not a 9. And then we change our divided to a times. And then we flip over the second fraction. So c over d becomes d over c. And so what we end up with is ad over bc. So for instance, if we have 1/2 divided by 1/3, we would change that to 1/2 times 3 over 1. So we change this part. The divided by becomes the times, and our 1/3 becomes 3 over 1. And then this becomes the fraction 3/2. 1 times 3 is 3, 2 times 1 is 2. So when you flip a fraction over, that's called getting the reciprocal. So if we have 2, the reciprocal is 1/2. If we have 1/4, the reciprocal is 4. If we have 3/5, the reciprocal is 5/3. Whoops, it switched out of pen mode, sorry. It's 5/3. If you multiply a number by its reciprocal, you'll get 1. 2 times 1/2 is 1. 1/4 times 4 is 1. 3/5 of 5/3 is 1. So you'll know you have the reciprocal if you can multiply it by your original fraction and get 1. Now, if you happen to have something like x plus 2 and you need to get the reciprocal, consider this a fraction over 1. So the reciprocal is going to be 1 over x plus 2. Okay, so let's do some sample problems. We're going to start with number 4. And number 4 is just like number 9 that's assigned for homework. So let's do a couple of these. Number 4, part B, we have 1/3. What is the reciprocal of 1/3? Well, we just flip it over. So we put our 3 on the top and the 1 on the bottom. Notice 1/3 times 3 is going to give you 1. So 3 over 1 is our reciprocal, but we should simplify it to 3. Okay, part E, we have 2x plus 1. The reciprocal of that is 1 over 2x plus 1. Okay, part F, we have x squared over x minus 3. The reciprocal of that, we just flip it over. X minus 3 goes on the top now, and the x squared goes on the bottom. So this is number 4, which is just like number 9. All you have to do is flip over your fraction. If what you have is not a fraction, like the 2x plus 1, consider it a fraction over 1, and then you flip it over. Okay, so next we're going to look at problem number 5. Number 5 is just like number 10. It says express the following quotients as integers or fractions in simplest terms. So we're going to start with part A. Part A is 6/7 divided by 3/4. So we're going to copy our first fraction, 6/7, change the divided to a times, and flip over our second fraction, get the reciprocal. Now we check to see if there are any terms that we can cancel out. We don't do canceling until we get it into product form. Okay, the 4 and the 7 can't cancel with anything, but the 6 and the 3, those can cancel with each other. If you divide both of those by 3, we get 2 and 1. Multiply across our numerator, 2 times 4 is 8. Multiply across the denominator, 7 times 1 is 7. Our answer is 8/7. Let's hop down and look at part C. Part C is x squared over 2. I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong problem here. That's part C from number 6. Let's look at part C from number 5, and that is 8 divided by 2/5. Now remember, 8 we can consider a fraction over 1. So we just copy our first fraction, change our divided to a times, and then we flip over our second fraction. So 2/5 becomes 5/2. Now you can see our 8 and our 2 can cancel. If we divide both of those by 2, 8 divided by 2 is 4, 2 divided by 2 is 1. Multiply across the top, 4 times 5 is 20. Multiply across the bottom, 1 times 1 is 1. We simplify our answer, and our final answer is 20. Now let's look at part D. Part D, we have 1/9 divided by 10. We copy our first fraction, change our divided to a times. Our second fraction is a 10. That's a fraction over 1. So we can write that as 1/10 when we flip it over. Multiply across the top, we get 1. Multiply across the bottom, we get 90. So our answer is 1/90. Okay, now let's look at part F. Okay, so for part F, we have 4 5/8 divided by 9 1/4. Okay, we can't do anything with this problem as written. We need to convert both of these mixed numbers to improper fractions. So first I'm going to do that. 4 times 8 is 32, plus 5 is 37. So my first fraction is 37/8. And then I'm going to copy my divided and get the improper fraction for 9 1/4. 9 times 4 is 36, plus 1 is 37, and then 4 is what our fraction is. Now I rewrite the problem. Copy our first fraction, change the divided to a times, flip over the second fraction, and now you can see our 37s are going to cancel. The 4 will cancel with the 8. The 4 becomes a 1, the 8 becomes a 2, and what we end up with is 1/2. We'll do just one more part so that we can do another mixed number problem, 5E. We have 4 2/3 divided by 7/12. Again, we cannot leave a mixed number as it is, so 4 2/3, I'm going to change that. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 2 is 14, so this is 14/3. I'm going to change my divided to a times. I'm going to flip over my fraction. 7/12 becomes 12/7. Now I look to see if there's anything I can cancel. The 14 and the 7 can both be divided by 7. 14 divided by 7 is 2. 7 divided by 7 is 1. 3 and 12 can cancel. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 12 divided by 3 is 4. We multiply across the numerator. 2 times 4 is 8. Multiply across the denominator. 1 times 1 is 1. And then we simplify. 8 over 1 is 8. So that was number 5. It's just like number 10 that was assigned as homework. Okay, let's look now at number 6. Number 6 says, write each of the following as a monomial or fraction in simplest terms. Be careful on this problem because there are because we have multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction all mixed in. So make sure you know what your problem is asking for. You're going to have to keep careful track of which part you're on and which operation it's asking for. So part A is x squared over 2 times x over 4. So this is a multiplication problem. When you have multiplication, the first thing you do is check to see if there's anything that cancels, and nothing cancels. So we multiply across the top. X squared times x is x cubed, and we multiply across the bottom. 2 times 4 is 8. So our answer is x cubed over 8. Now we look at part B. Part B takes those same two fractions, only we're dividing them. So we have x squared over 2 divided by x over 4. So when we're dividing, we copy the first fraction, x squared over 2, change the divided to a times, and we take the reciprocal of the second fraction, which is just flipping it over. Now we check to see if anything cancels. Well, the 2 and the 4 can both be divided by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. The x squared and the x can both be divided by x. So x squared divided by x is x. X divided by x is 1. Now we multiply across the numerator. X times 2 is 2x. Multiply across the denominator. 1 times 1 is 1. And then we simplify and get 2x. So let's do now part C. Part C again uses those same two fractions. We have x squared over 2 and x over 4, only this time we're subtracting them. Now remember, when you're subtracting, you have to get a common denominator. So I can multiply this first fraction by 2 over 2, and that will give us a common denominator of 4. 2 times x squared is 2x squared, and then we have minus x. So 2x squared minus x over 4. So when you are multiplying, you first check to see if there are things you can cancel. Once you've done any canceling that you can do, you multiply across the numerator, you multiply across the denominator, check again to see if there's anything that cancels, and then you're done once you've simplified it. When you have division, you have to change your divided to a times, flip over your second fraction, and then you proceed just like a multiplication problem. If you're adding or subtracting, you have to get a common denominator first. So that's what we did here for part C. Now let's do another section from number 6. Let's do number 6, part G. Number 6, part G is 6 over x plus 1 times 4 over x plus 1. So we're multiplying. When we multiply, first we look to see if there are things that can cancel, but there's nothing that can cancel. So we're just going to multiply across. 6 times 4 is 24. X plus 1 times x plus 1. You could just write x plus 1 squared, and I would be fine with that. Or you can multiply that out and say x squared plus 2x plus 1. If you multiply it out, make sure you remember this middle term. X plus 1 times x plus 1 is not x squared plus 1. There is a middle term. Okay, let's look at part H. Part H is 6 over x plus 1 divided by 4 over x plus 1. Remember, whenever you're dividing, you copy your first fraction, and then you change your divided to a times, and then you flip over your second fraction. Our x plus 1's cancel. Our 6 and our 4, those can both be divided by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And you'll see that we end up with 3/2 as our final answer. So this was number 6, which is just like number 11 that I assigned as homework. Okay, let's look now at number 7. Number 7 and number 8 have the same instructions. Express each of the following quotients as a monomial or fraction in simplest terms. So we're going to do part B, and that's x over y squared divided by y over x squared. So when we have divided, we start with our first fraction, just copy it, change the divided to times, flip over our second fraction. We have x squared over y. Now we look to see if there's anything we can cancel out, and there actually isn't anything we can cancel out. So we multiply across the top, x times x squared is x cubed, multiply across the bottom, y squared times y is y cubed, and we have our final answer. Now let's look at part D. Part D, we have 5x plus 10 over 3 divided by 5x over 6. So we're going to copy our first fraction, which is 5x plus 10 over 3, change the divided to a times, flip over our second fraction. Now I can see right away that this 3 and the 6 can cancel. 3 divided by 3 is 1, 6 divided by 3 is 2. Now let's look at what we have here. Our numerator, we have 2 times 5x plus 10, and in the denominator we have 5x. But if you look inside the parentheses, the terms you have in the parentheses have a common factor. Both of these terms can be divided by 5. So I'm going to write 2 times 5 times x plus 2, because 5 times x is 5x and 5 times 2 is 10. And now we're going to divide all of that by 5x. Our 5's cancel, and so we end up with 2 times x plus 2, that's supposed to be a 2, over x. And you can multiply this out if you want to 2x plus 4 over x. I'm fine with leaving it in factored form, or you can change it to, you can multiply it out. Let's do one more part from number 7. Let's do part F. Part F is x over x minus y divided by x over y minus x. So we copy our first fraction, we change the divided to a times, we flip over our second fraction. You can see our x's cancel. Notice we have a y minus x and an x minus y. Those are the exact same thing but opposite signs. That means they cancel to a -1. Note, y minus x and x minus y are the negative of each other, but y minus x and y plus x are not.